Hey everybody, let's do the configuration of static and default routing here. So to go and configure static routing, what we do is let's say we work with this inside zone. So I've got a Palo Alto Firewall 1 sitting in this HQ zone, connected over Ethernet 1/1 interface, having this 10.1.1.2.0.1 IP address configured over here, and I want this particular firewall to have couple of loopbacks for testing purpose, representing certain LAN segments that it has connected with. So loopback 0 and loopback 1 with this respective IPs. I will be configuring this on PFW1, and I've got an inside router connected to this inside switch, and it is part of this 10.1.1.0/24 subnet, where from this subnet I'm giving the IP of 10.1.1.25 on its interface E00, and a couple of loopbacks representing it is connecting to certain LAN segments over here. And we will do static routing from this inside router to the Palo Alto firewall to reach to that PA loopbacks, and likewise PA firewall should have a static routing to reach this inside router loopbacks. Okay, so this is one stuff. Next configuration would be for default routing, where I want my Palo Alto firewall should have a default route which is pointing towards this edge router of its company, and from there the route will be towards the internet. So Palo Alto firewall to reach anywhere towards the world of internet through this edge router as the next hop, it should point a default route to this edge router next hop IP of 123.1.1.1. Alright, so default route towards the outside and static route configuration within the inside zone. So let's configure this. So first of all, let's go and configure the inside router. So I have the inside router right here in my secure CRT. Let's go with the basic configuration first. So it's a Cisco router. Okay, so let's say I give a host name as inside router, and I give the basic command line console 0, logging synchronous, session idle timeout as disabled, no IP domain lookup to search for any ambiguous command here. Yep, that's it. So let's go and save the basic configs, and we go and configure a couple of loopbacks first on this router, and /24 as required. Likewise, I have another loopback which is 111 and /24, and the physical interface is running on 10.1.1.25 and /24. You can configure the loopbacks in /32 as well, your choice, but yeah. But in Palo Alto firewall, when you go and configure the loopback, it accepts /32 itself. Okay. All right, so let's save this IP address configuration. If I see the IP address configured on the port with show IP interface brief, I see Ethernet 00 is assigned with. All right, there is some duplex mismatch happening on Ethernet 00. Okay, let's go and fix it first, and couple of loopbacks IP configured on the router. All right, so let's go to interface E00. I say speed as 100. Okay, so let's say I configured this as full duplex. Let's save it. Okay, so this is done. Let's go and configure the Palo Alto firewall with couple of loopbacks. So do that, when you log into the GUI of Palo Alto firewall, click on the network tab, and then click on the interface tab from the left menu, and you can go and configure the different loopbacks over here. So these loopbacks were there for testing purpose, you know. Let's click on this loopback, and yeah, so this is part of that testing process. Okay, so let's say I create some couple of loopback interface over here. So this is a loopback number say 10 as an example. This is inside loopback 10, something like that. As a comment, virtual router, I'll keep it on the default virtual router. Security zone, I'm going to keep this in the trust zone. If the zone is not created, then you can go and create this new zone, right? And you can go and configure a new zone and define the zone name as say trust and click on OK there. For me, the trust zone was already defined, so I can say virtual router as default and security zone as trust. Come to that IPv4 tab and click on this add, which IP is 1.2.3.4/32. You can either define /32 CIDR or you can leave this blank. So if we leave this blank, it will accept the CIDR value as /32 itself. So let's say I define it with /32. Click on advanced. I attach that management profile which allows ping to that particular interface, and that's all. Click on OK. All right, so click on yes to that. So loopback 10 is configured, and add one more, which is a loopback 11 for testing purpose. This is inside loopback 11, virtual router as default, security zone as trust, IPv4. Let's add the IP of 5.6.7.8/32. Advanced, attach that management profile allowing ping to that loopback. Click on OK. Click on yes to that notification, and done. All right, now let's go and configure static route on your Palo Alto firewall to reach the inside router loopback. To reach that, the next hop IP my PA will take will be 10.1.1.25. So PA will take this next hop as 10.1.1.25 to reach to this loopback network. Okay, likewise, my inside router to reach this loopback network, my next hop IP would be ETH1/1 IP address on 10.1.1.2.0.1 to reach this loopback network. Okay, so let's go and configure the static route. So what we can do is, we can add a task here as well. So static and default route configuration on PA firewall. Okay, so first task is configure the loopback IP address as per the requirement on the PA FW1 and the inside router. That is first thing. Second thing would be configure static routing, a static route from PA1 to reach the loopback IP address of the inside router. Okay, and next would be to configure static default route to reach any IP address on internet via the edge router IP as the next hop. Right, that's my task. So the first task is done. So the IP address is configured. Now I'm going to configure the static route from PA to reach the loopback IP address of the inside router, and vice versa. Okay, So let's go and configure this task number 2. So I'm on the PA firewall FW1. I can click on the network tab, click on virtual routers menu from here, click on virtual routers, and you know that you are going to configure, I mean, the loopback 10, loopback 11, and all these ports are part of the default virtual router. So let's click on the default virtual router name, and over here you'll find the static routes menu to configure, and you are configuring a static route over here for IPv4. So let's click on add, and let's say this is SR towards inside router loopbacks. Okay, this is the name. Destination IP, so you have got here a couple of loopbacks. One is 11 and one is 111. So let's say it's 11.11.11.0/24, and my interface, it is eth1/1, and the next hop is an IP address, and the IP address over here, if you look for eth1/1, the next hop IP is 10.1.1.25. So let's define the next hop IP as 10.1.1.25, and yep, you can keep this metric, the route table, the BFD, and the default value. We'll look into path monitoring and all those things later, but yeah, this is the process by which you add a static route to reach one destination network over the next hop IP, and define the outgoing interface to reach that next hop IP. All right, click on OK, and let's go and configure one more static routes. So this is again static route towards inside router 2, something like that, and destination is 111.0/24 subnet. Next hop is, the interface is eth1/1, and next hop is 10.1.1.25 again. Click on OK. So I've defined here a couple of routes, static routes. Okay, and there is a default route already configured, but in case if you want to look it for the very, oops, sorry, I have removed that, let me add it back again. So this is SR towards inside router 2, okay, interface is eth1/1, next hop is 10.1.1.25, leave everything as default, click on OK there, and I'm going to add the default route, which is task number 3, towards the edge router on this next hop 123.1.1.24. So this is default route towards edge, destination is all 0/0, any IP, any mask. Next hop IP address is an IP address, interface would be the outside interface, which is eth1/2, and next hop is 123.1.1.1 as per the diagram. Looks good to me. Yep, so the static routes towards inside and default routes towards outside is configured. Click on OK there. So let's go and click on commit. Let's commit all the changes, and let's wait for the commit to happen. Depends on the RAM allocation that you've given to the Palo Alto VM, the amount of time it will take for the commit to take place. So it will be around a couple of minutes, so max within a couple of minutes it will be done for me. All right, let's wait for the commit to happen. Okay, so the configuration is committed successfully, so let's click on close, and now you can verify that. So you can actually click on the virtual router for your default virtual route. For a default virtual router, on the extreme right side you have got this runtime stats. Just click on this more runtime stats option, and you can see the route table for this particular firewall. So you can see there is a default route configured in the first line itself, the next hop defined, the metric defined, and these flags represent the status of that particular route. So it is A means active, route is fine, and S is the type of the route, so it is static route, and that's the outgoing interface over Ethernet 1/2. And likewise, you have got this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 as your host address, or connected routes. You can say 10.1, 10.1.1.2.0.1. These are all your connected route or connected subnet, and this is the host IP on the interface. Likewise, 11 and 111, those are the static routes you have configured to reach the inside router. Okay, there's two, and this is the connected route over the outside interface, and this is the connected IP or the host IP configured on the outside interface. Alright, so it looks good to me. The routes are available. What else you can do is you can go to the CLI of this Palo Alto as well and verify with one command. Although we'll look into the various command line approaches later in the course, but the different CLI commands that you should know as administrator, we'll look into that later part of the course, but important commands, right? So like for example, show routing route. Show routing route is one of the important commands to verify the routing table from your CLI. So you can see that, hey, I've got this default route toward this next hop, the static routes of 111 and 11 configured from 10.1.1.2.5, remaining those are my host route or the connected subnets, etc. Yeah, and this shows per virtual router. So you can see that I've got a testing virtual router VR2 over here with a loopback interface IP configured. Yeah, you can see that as well. All right, so likewise, let's go to the inside router and look for the inside router routing table. So if I see here show IP route, I can see that it's connected 111 and 11 network, and I should configure a static route over here, which is IP route, to reach 1.2.3.4. let's say I add a /32 in the mask, and the next hop IP is 10.1.1.2.0.1. likewise, IP route 5.6.7.8, that's the mask for /32, and over the same next hop. Let's save the config, and if I see show IP route static, I have those routes towards my PA firewall loopback with an AD value of 1, metric of 0 by default. That's my next hop. Let's do a test with ping. So I allowed ping on the management I allowed the ping on the loopback interface of my Palo Alto firewall because I allowed the management profile, you remember, where the ping was allowed. So I can ping 1 2 3 4 with source of 11, and it's working fine. Likewise, I can ping, let's say I can ping 5.6.7.8, 5.6.7.8 with source of say 111. That's also working fine. Now from your Palo Alto firewall, you can test in this way. So you can go to the PA firewall CLI. You can say ping space host, where you can say I want to reach 11, and you can define the source, which is 1.2.3.4. Source 1.2.3.4. By mistake, I did add the source in the front, so it should be ping source space, the source IP is 1.2.3.4, and I want to reach the destination, which is 11 11 11 11, and that's working like a champ. So similarly, I can ping with source IP of 5.6.7.8 with the destination of 111, and this is also working like a champ, right? And likewise, let's test my default route, because I also have a default route from the edge router. So from the Palo Alto, if I want to reach to 123.1.1.1, sorry, ping host, probably I didn't allow the management profile on my outside port. Okay, so let's say ping to 888. Okay, so I can reach the world of internet over here. Okay, so my default route is working fine. All right. Okay, so I hope this is clear of configuration of static and default routing. Please practice the same, and I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.